What happened with Human Rights Watch, we started the Helsinki Watch Committee. In the watch committees, we thought there's something wrong if we're just going to criticize the Soviet Union, so we started the America's Watch. In 1980, a man named Thornton Bradshaw became head of RCA. And we talked about things, and somehow we got into the fact that we had America's Watch. And he said, "What would you like to do now?" And I said, "Well, we'd like to start Middle East Watch and Asia Watch and Africa Watch." And he said, "Well, I'm on the board," and he became chairman of the MacArthur Foundation, and they put up the money to start these other 3 watch committees. And so we now had 5 watch committees, and the press became sort of very confused. So we merged them all, and they still exist really as separate groups within Human Rights Watch. I've learned in my human rights work, without freedom of speech, you can't get the other freedoms. But it's the most important thing in the world. I mean, the most amusing part for me was Gorbachev, many years later, I forget what year, came to the United States for his first visit. And they organized a group of 15 or 20 publishing figures. I, being head of Random House, was one of them. And we were invited to the Soviet embassy to meet Gorbachev. So we were all sitting around, and they said, "We can have one question, you can have one question each of Mr. Gorbachev." So people were asking different questions, and they were all sort of softballs, I guess, in my view. And it came my turn, and I said, "Mr. Gorbachev, you're really off to a wonderful start in the Soviet Union. In your first 6 months of office, you've released half of the political prisoners in the Soviet Union, and you're really to be congratulated, and I want to congratulate you for that." And he beamed. And then I said, "You know, that leads to the obvious question. When are you going to release the other half?" He turned instantly furious, but really furious. He said, "I don't need you to tell me how to run the Soviet Union. You're shooting Mexicans coming over the border," and he knew all of our human rights problems. My real feeling was, as it always was when you're in human rights, if you don't bring up human rights when you're meeting abusers of human rights, they go back and they say, "You know, it can't be very important to them. They didn't even mention it." People start talking about they have their culture and you're interfering with their cultural way of looking at things. That's why I think it's important to have indigenous human rights organizations, so that it's their own people criticizing their governments rather than outsiders. But until you get that, you've got to try and bring out the problems of those societies.